Okay. So again, our theme for today is, oh, what a tangled web they weave. And we're going to start with Hank Sullivan. So, Mr. Sullivan, thank you for making time to join us this evening.
Oh, glad to be here.
All right. So you have done just an amazing amount of research to uncover things that the laws require from Georgia's GOP, yet they seem to perhaps not be in alignment with some of those requirements. So I'm not going to steal your thunder. Let me turn it over to you, sir, to get us started.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. And I've been thinking about a way to try to make people understand what this is. And I didn't think of this opportunity until I didn't have enough time to get the real props here. But just imagine in my right hand here that I have a football. Football games are played with a certain set of rules, right? Imagine I have a baseball in my left hand. Baseball has another set of rules. You can't play football with a baseball, and you can't play baseball with a football. Now, both of these are balls, but they're different. There's a different definition to them. And what we have here is we have our state Republican Party that is claiming to be a corporation, a nonprofit corporation, but it's also claiming to be a political party. Well, corporations have certain rules and political parties have certain rules, but they're not the same rules. Now, both of those entities have members, but a political party has a certain type of member that has a certain definition, like a baseball, and a nonprofit corporation has members, but they're different members and it's a different definition. So you can't say that these things are the same thing because the definitions that make them what they are not the same thing, including the fact that this particular nonprofit corporation doesn't even have members. So maybe that's a better way to explain what's going on here. What's really difficult is that the powers that be in the Georgia Republican Party are gaslighting an entire population of Republicans. They will not come off of this story. They are dead set on maintaining this narrative that these two things, this nonprofit corporation and this political party, are the same thing. They're not, they cannot be, and there is no ballot access for a nonprofit corporation. Just look at the Clinton Foundation. The Clinton Foundation is a nonprofit corporation. So do you think just by changing the name of the Clinton Foundation to say the Arkansas Democratic Party, that all of a sudden this nonprofit corporation gets to have ballot access? Well, that's exactly what has happened here. We had a Republican Party of Georgia, the Georgia Republican Party, that in 2014, they created a corporation. And then over a period of 2 to 3 years, all of a sudden, this entity became that entity. And that's how they're operating. It's not the case. They cannot do it. It's not lawful. And they keep gaslighting the entire population to believe that these two things are the same, and they are not.
Hank, I took the liberty of pulling a couple pages out of your latest Substack that may help a bit get us started on this dialogue too. And this on the left is an original front page of the rules of the Georgia Republican Party. That one was signed by John Paget some years ago. And the one on the right was until recently unsigned, and it says Rules of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. And essentially what you're saying is, this is not as simple as just sticking INC on the end of the name, is it?
No, it's not. Okay, so what you have there on the screen on the left, that's the Rules of the Georgia Republican Party. That is, as far as I can tell, that's the last known set of rules for the Georgia Republican Party. And it is signed, notice it is signed there by John Paget, who was the chairman at the time of the Georgia Republican Party. But also notice that stamp. That was a stamp as received by the Georgia Secretary of State's office. And now those are dated May 18th, 2013. And for all I can imagine, those are still the the rules of the Georgia Republican Party, because anytime it says in section in Title 21, section 21-2-110, when it's defining what political parties are, it says that political parties have to report anytime their material information changes. So if you have a new election and you have a different, say a different chairman, then you've got to file that information with the Secretary of State's office. And until that information is filed with the Secretary of State's office, then the person who was the chairman is still the chairman. That's the way that the law is written there. And so anytime you change the rules, or anytime you change, say, the state committee, the members of the state committee, there's well over 100 members of the state committee. According to the law, it's supposed to be public information, because the people that they represent in their areas of the state need to know who they are. So if there's party information that they need to be able to understand or impart to the party who's actually the operating material, the operating organization here, then they would have a way to do that. So on the right-hand side, you have the next iteration of the Georgia Republican Party rules, but it says they're the rules of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. Now, notice they're not signed. Until recently, there has never been a signed, which is a form of certification. It's certified, as the ones on the left are, certified by the chairman. But that one is not signed. In fact, none of these have been signed that have ink on them from 2013 all the way through to 2019. And do you have that one that was signed by David Schaefer?
I do. Before we move on, I want to point out, you mentioned the stamp. So when these and other documents are filed with the Secretary of State's office, just like filing a court document, they put a stamp on it. And it's not super easy to see, but it is down on the lower right-hand corner of the left-hand page. And it shows, in fact, that it was filed. Let's go
People
to...
may be asking right now, well, how do we know that other copies were not filed? Well, all of the open records requests from 2013 all the way through the present have yielded very little. In fact, what you're showing right there is one of the answers from the open record staff. Secretary of State's office does not have the records responsive to your requested highlight below it. So they've been asked the Secretary of State's office has been asked to respond with all of the sets of rules that have been filed with their office from 2013 all the way until 2020. And until recently, there has been no evidence that any of them have been filed. But obviously this is telling you that they didn't have that information. So it appears as though that none of these sets of rules have been filed. So go back to the picture of the one with David Schaefer's name on it.
Okay, here we go.
All right, so notice on this one, David Schaefer was the immediate past chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, whatever that even means today. But notice that when he signed these rules, he scratched out the ink in both the signature block and the main area in the middle of the title page there. He scratched both of those out. So whether these have been filed, there has been no evidence given to anyone who's submitted open records requests responding with this. So again, the law was not followed, apparently, because the Secretary of State's office does not have this document. I find it very interesting that Mr. Schaefer did not sign a rules of the Georgia Republican Party that he did not first strike through the ink.
Yeah. Now here's this is one of the pages from within the document. Is that correct? And right there it says these rules shall become effective upon filing.
Yes. It says that even in the rules, so you have the law says that the rules are not effective until filing. You have the rules that say these rules are not effective until filing. So as I said, until you have a set of rules that is certified and received by the Secretary of State's office, then it's the preceding set that were in effect at the time when you might look at a subsequent set of rules. So again, the last time we have any rules of the Georgia Republican Party that show any sign that they were both certified and filed with the Georgia Secretary of State's office were in 2013. And what does that mean? That means, according to the literal written word of the law, that means that John Pageant is still the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party.
Because nothing's ever been filed that changes that, is what you're finding, right?
That's the way the law is written.
So Hank,
Todd, you had a question?
Yeah, it just seems, I mean, to me, it's just obvious that the whole infrastructure has been thinking very, very hard about how to do this, because the mental gymnastics they had to jump through to get this. This isn't an accident, I guess, is my point. This was calculated. Do you agree?
These are learned people.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. And I know what they're doing. And if anybody who looks into this, you'll know what they're doing too. But the question then becomes, okay, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Well, you know what? They've been asked this question over and over and over, and nobody's ever responded except to say that we can't do anything about this until some lawsuit with John Pageant is over. Nonsense. Because both of these entities are not the same entity. The Georgia Republican Party is not the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. They have nothing to do with each other. They're in different titles of law. And so if John Pageant and Georgia Republican Party, Inc. have a problem with each other, that's okay. That's got nothing to do with our political party. That's them. That's not us. And so the Georgia Republican Party has been taken away from the members of the party. And that's where we stand today. They will not rectify this, and they continue to gaslight Republicans, in all of the Republicans in the state, that they're members of something that doesn't have members. You see, none of this makes any sense whatsoever. The only way they can maintain this is by continuing to gaslight everybody that is involved with the Georgia Republican Party.
That's a great lead in for where I want to go next. So folks have looked at this and the document that up until recently has existed, called the Rules of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. And when I've asked questions, when you ask questions, typically the leadership of whatever this organization is has referred back to, oh, well, they're available on the GOP website. And what's been available on the GOP website until quite recently was that version.
That's right.
It's an unsigned version. There's no certification stamp on it. Yet folks for, I think, 4 years have referred and pointed to that and said, well, that's the one that those are the rules. Those are the rules. Yet they don't appear to be signed. They don't appear to be filed. And yet you can see the date. Well, maybe you can't see the date on our screen, but in fact, that is dated June 17th, 2020. Yeah. But notice all this time it's remained unsigned. Now, in the beginning of February, we again surfaced this, middle of February, we again surfaced this issue and noted that certain aspects of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc., even though the foundation documents of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. say they have no members, this document includes over 100 references to member or members. So that in and of itself struck a number of people as odd. In addition,
are astounding.
Yeah. In addition, court documents that were filed in the midst of trying to completely seal off, in other words, redact an agreement that had been formed between John Pageant and a former plaintiff, and including the Georgia Republican Party, or Georgia Republican Party, Inc. those documents indicated again to the court directly that they said the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. does not have members in they called it in a traditional sense, like stakeholders. Okay, so there are no members, yet this document and others refer to members. How could that possibly be? Then about a month ago, you noticed something very odd show up, and I want to go through this very methodically. I want people to understand what happened. This document existed for about 4 years.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
And then just about a month ago in March, something changed. Why don't you take us through the next change?
Yeah, I don't even know why I went to the Georgia Republican Party or the GAGOP.org website. Maybe I was looking for a set of rules and couldn't find them readily, and I thought I would download another set. And then I open it up, and lo and behold, all of a sudden there's a signature on it. There you go. So who's that signed by? That's signed by Josh McCoon, chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. Notice the date is the same. So all they did was it appears for all intents and purposes that they whited out David Schaefer's name and then drew a line and typed in Josh McCoon, and then Josh McCoon signed his name as if he were the chairman in June of 2020. Well, he was not the chairman in June of 2020. He didn't become the chairman until June of 2023. If there even is a chairman, because the corporation doesn't have a chairman, the corporation has the titles are not even the same. So here it is. Josh McCoon's signature shows up on this. So I started asking questions, and what I understood now is that Mr. McCoon was asked, where are the certified copies of the rules of the Georgia Republican Party, Inc.? And he couldn't find them. From what I understand, he called all around, couldn't find them. So what did he do? Obviously, you see it on your screen. He changed the title block on it, changed the signature block, and then wrote in his own name there, signing it as if he were the chairman in 2020. Now, the chairman in 2020 was David Schaefer, and in the 2019 rules, David refused to sign, or maybe he wasn't a big issue. Maybe he just struck through it and wouldn't sign the Inc. Rules. And the 2020 rules, he didn't sign at all. So, you're having to read a lot of things into this, and I don't think Mr. Schaefer is ready to say that anything nefarious is going on with this, and I don't blame him. But it sure doesn't look right. It sure doesn't look right. And so we have these rules that you're looking at right here are the rules that are listed on the call that is supposedly authorizing this entire election season leading up to the Dalton Republican convention in June. And so everything that's been happening from the precinct meetings to the county conventions to your district conventions and all the way up to the Dalton convention is being carried out under the auspices of, under the authority of these rules. And we just showed you these rules are not certified. And now there's a real question about whether these rules have been filed. Now, I don't have any reason to believe that these latest rules that we're seeing here have been filed, which means that they're invalid because it says in 11.2, the rules and amendments do not become effective until they're certified and filed with with the Secretary of State's office. However, there was a set of rules that back in 2023 that were not signed, that were conveyed according to two emails, one from General Counsel Kaufman to the General Counsel with the Georgia Republican Party / Inc. with the General Counsel of Brad Raffensperger, in which Mr. Kaufman asked Mrs. McGowan to tell them whether these rules sufficed for their requirements under 21-2-110. And Ms. McGowan, I'm not looking at it, but Ms. McGowan said that she believed that this fulfilled their requirements under Title 21. Now,
hang on, I need to ask a question. So
okay.
She used the word believed.
Yes.
Now, Ms. McGowan is also the same person that, at the request of the state election board, refused to give them evidence that she had in her possession regarding the ballots of Fulton County. So does it strike you as interesting that she would pick the word believed as opposed to yes or no?
Well, yes. When you use the word believe, then no one can know your heart except the Lord above. So no one's going to know. You can always say, well, I did believe it. I did say that I believe that this was true, but it turned out it wasn't true. You can't get them on anything on that.
And once again, we have no evidence that these have been filed, right? And dated with a stamp.
The only thing that we have evidence of is an email from Mr. Kaufman to Ms. McGowan saying, I have forwarded certain rules to you. Does this fulfill our requirement? And I'm paraphrasing. Does this fulfill our requirement under Title 21? And then she said, I'm in receipt of that. Again, paraphrasing. And I believe that this fulfills your requirements under Title 21. Now, obviously, she did not have the Title 21 in front of her because she would have seen that, number one, let's just look at this. According to Title 21-2-110, the contact information, names, addresses, phone numbers, and everybody of the governing committee have got to be filed as well. Well, the governing committee of the Georgia Republican Party is a committee that's known in the rules as the state committee, and it's well over 100 people, maybe 150, 170 people that are on that committee. Well, none of those people, their names are not filed with the Georgia Secretary of State's office, and so obviously Ms. McGowan must have made a mistake if she said that merely filing an unsigned set of rules in an email is going to satisfy that requirement, because again, we got footballs, we got baseballs, and they're not the same here.
So Hank, let me ask you, I mean, there's these filing requirements. They haven't been done for years. We can't find the formation documents at the Secretary of State, and even check the archives for the political party itself. I mean, there's a question that could be asked: does the political party even exist at this point legally?
Well, there is a germane question there. Mm-hmm. I maintain that it does, but it's just out of compliance. Mm-hmm. I believe it does exist because once, if you look at Title 21 and you read through it, it tells you about the creation of political parties, but there's no provision in the law to abandon a political party or for it to become non-existent. Once you can't get rid of it. So it's there in perpetuity, but if you don't maintain the information with the Secretary of State's office, it goes into a non-compliant status.
So this is the tactic. Sorry, Bill, real quick. This is a tactic in Miami-Dade. I'm on the Miami-Dade Republican Executive Committee, at least until a few months ago. They just completely did not file required filing so that the grassroots could see what was going on in the party. So there's like they're just not following the rule of law, and they can get away with it, so they keep doing it. Is my sense.
That's what they seem to be doing. But I look at a lot of other things too. It makes you kind of wonder, why are they doing this? And I talked about baseball rules and football rules, and they're different and all that. So one of the differences here is that, like in a nonprofit corporation, if you had members, all the members get to see, they're entitled to see the books. They're entitled to see all the books. But if you have a nonprofit that doesn't have members, then there's a very elite club of people that have access to the books. And the very top individual in it, being the chairman, has the right to say, okay, who gets to see the books and who doesn't get to see the books. And by virtue of the fact that this nonprofit does not have members, then that's a really tightly knit club. And so here it is. Last week over in Gainesville, we heard the treasurer of the Georgia Republican Party, and let me say that the elected treasurer, this is like part of our Republican form of government here. She's authorized by the people to deal in the financial aspects of the Georgia Republican Party. All of them. She's elected. She's elected to see everything about the books, because you want someone that is accountable to the people to be able to be accountable, but also be able to see what she's being accountable for. And she tells us that she doesn't get to see any of the books. All she sees is a list of items in a QuickBooks, and then she looks in to see whether they balance with what's on the FEC report. That is the job of the Georgia Republican Party Inc. treasurer, is to make sure that the bank balances with the report. But other than that, she's got no idea, according to Miss McLean, of where those numbers come from. And I also say, it's like, okay, how do you even know how many bank accounts that this nonprofit corporation might have? How do you know that you're seeing all of the information? Because nonprofit corporations, they don't have to tell you anything. They don't have to tell you about their books beyond what they have to report to the government. And because it's a nonprofit corporation and not a political party, they're telling you certain things about the political party, but is that everything? Obviously not, because you have a political party, you have a corporation. So there's two different functions there. And was it one big pile of money, or is it in different accounts? Nobody knows.
Yeah. So one of the characteristics of situations like this, when there's something to be hidden, in my humble opinion, is that people begin to scurry around and make changes, but don't have time to consider the impact of those changes. This strange signature that showed up after 4 years some might call that an example of it. Others might call, trying to divert attention away from this by using others could be another tactic. And we're going to hear about how at the federal level that's been being done. One of the things that I found fascinating was one of the folks that's lost a lot of credibility, if not all, in the public arena overnight called you a conspiracy theorist, which I thought, wow, we're dragging one out of mothballs, Donald Trump Jr.
And everything that I was saying then came true. But
I think he works for Putin too. That's what I heard.
Yeah, Donald Trump Jr. in October of last year said that folks that were conspiracy theorists are really nothing more than folks that have really good pattern recognition. They can see signals created by things that don't fit very well.
Yeah. Before we change subjects, let me say this one thing about those rules that are signed by, ostensibly, but I didn't see him sign them. Maybe it's a stamp, I don't know, by Josh McCoon. If you look on page 40 of those documents, of that set of rules, page 40 says, there it is, says that the actual chairman is not Josh McCoon, it's David Schaefer. So the rules that are authorizing the call that is going to culminate in the Dalton Convention show that there's two different chairmen here. And obviously these rules are not filed. Who would file something like this?
Yeah.
I mean, so these rules all of this is called into question here.
Yeah.
How on earth can these people keep this up? How do they do it with a straight face? That's how I don't understand how they do it with a straight face.
I can't keep a straight face as you're describing it.
I've been referring to people like Josh McCoon for quite a while as an actor. These people are actors. They're really good. They're convincing, and they get right in front of the camera, and they will tell you something that's not true, and they will not flinch, and they will stick to that story like grim death. They will not let go of it, because as soon as they do, they are destroyed. They are absolutely destroyed by this if they ever admit what the truth is in all of this. It's insane.
We heard one of those in the last couple of weeks, when the story on Jaquan Stembridge came out. Josh came around the front of the table and said, well, now I want to be completely transparent, or something to that effect. I never told him to leave the race. Well, yes, you never told him. You asked him. You asked him, and you gave him an incentive to do so. That's not telling him.
No.
So, again, it's trying to slice truth into two pieces, I guess.
Along those
calling these people actors is really insightful, Hank, because we've seen that all over the country, if not all over the world, where you have people in positions of power that are really just doing what they're told, and have, you can see it and spot it eventually.
Well, you guys are on this. You do enough on the air to know that there's a certain amount of acting that goes along with it. You have to play the part and all that. And so it's going to happen with politicians. They're all actors, but these are some really good actors, especially when they're looking you in the face and you're telling you something that's not true, and they're not going to come off of it, and they're going to try. But you said something a minute ago, Bill, I want to touch about. So I heard this afternoon that Josh McCoon is being asked about this by people that are really wondering, okay, what's going on with this? And so here was his answer. Now, I was at an event with Bill about 2 weeks ago up in Gainesville at the Hall County Republican Party, where Josh McCoon was speaking. Now, when it came to Q&A, there was going to be about 10 or 15 minutes of Q&A. So I'm there. I could ask him any question I want to. I did not ask him about the ink. The reason why I did not ask him, because that would be a 2-hour debate. And you cannot possibly have something like that. That would be so inconsiderate of me to take over this entire event with a question like that. So I asked him a softball question, really. I didn't have to, but I did ask him a softball question. So he's now, from what I hear this afternoon, he's now saying, well, Hank had the opportunity to ask me up there in Gainesville, and he didn't ask me. Oh, I'm just going to take over this entire event for 2 hours, and we're going to stand here and have a debate while other people want to ask you questions. I mean, that's how they divert. That's the actor in them. They have to be swift on their feet and be able to react to something, get away from the questioner, go on down the road, and see if they can escape without having to reveal anything. That's the art of it all. That's politics for you.
I wish we had time travel, and we'd take you back and you could ask the question. And then today, probably the answer would have been, well, he took the entire meeting off track by asking about something that isn't really an issue anyway. It's just a paperwork thing. It'll,
Yeah.
How interesting.
I heard that today, though, and I thought, my goodness. So he's not going to answer their question. He's going to divert to say, well, Hank could have asked me that question last week, and he didn't. So I got to
go. Hank, well, the amount of work you've put in on just this one issue, even though it's grown and grown and grown and grown, is amazing.
Well, I have not been alone in any of this. I am not. I wouldn't have even known about this one for other people. Go Reclaim Georgia and Sarah Thompson. It's amazing the amount of information that has come to me from sources that have really been doing the hard work. And I'm just the messenger here. I guess I'm blessed to be able to understand it finally. And once I got it. And so I guess I'm the messenger and all that, but there's
pretty soon they'll be saying you really don't understand it, I bet.
Maybe so.
Hank, we're going to take a break and pay some bills. If you want to stick around, I'm going to cover another topic that I think you've done some work on. I'd like to get your thoughts on that too, if that's okay.
All right, I'm gonna grab a drink and I'll be right back.
Okay, sounds good.